Let's introduce our guests. For our Health Friday conversation, Dr. Mohamoud Merali is a consultant medical psychologist at the Aga Khan University Hospital. Dr. Ari, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for this privilege. I'm humbled.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
That's the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Do you want to swap places? You've been in it before.
Medical psychologist. How do you feel sitting on that chair?
Worried about our youth.
Right.
Very worried.
What does that make you feel?
Apprehensive. The seat is nice. It gives an opportunity to air concerns, share experiences, but it brings up the worry even stronger.
Now, you've said that worry a number of times. And when a doctor such as yourself, as senior as you are, use the word worry more than once in a sentence, we should all be worried. We'll have that conversation on why. Siti, please welcome the worried doctor. Is it an age thing? This guy yesterday was, what was it?
Perturbed.
Perplexed.
Oh,
Today he was perplexed. Yesterday he was
perturbed.
Yes.
Yes, I was perturbed.
Yesterday he had perturbations.
Today he had perplexities.
Nini was there.
Yes, it may be an age thing, but and it's with good reason. There are things you look at and it goes beyond concern. You're now bothered because something is going really, really wrong and you can see it. And the thing that age gives you is the advantage of seeing where it will end. Not might, where it will end. You can actually see it.
You can see it, eh?
Yes, you can.
Kuishi kwingi kuona mengi.
And you're evil, Baba.
And that's what the children don't like, isn't it? That you can see ahead and try to prevent them from those hurdles or those falls. And they don't like it because they say, let us experience it.
They're wondering, we are here with you. Tell me about what you've seen in the past. You can't really be seeing what's ahead. I mean, here you are with me. Anyway, Siti.
The proverb. Our proverbs for this week, our final proverb for this week, and the proverbs that we've had this week have been from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. Imitating things led the frog to have his ears cut.
Imitating things led the frog to have his ears cut. Dr. Mahmoud, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
That makes me even more worried. Because it's just telling you that society is good at aping. We are very good at imitating. We adopt practices, cultures, values from different cultures around the world, and then we forget ours. And eventually when the ears get cut, and then we say, let's go back to what we had, it's no longer the same. Times will have changed. Your values and principles will have changed, and your taste will have changed.
Yep.
It's like somebody saying, I want to live in America, and then missing home so much that they want to come back. And when they come back, they find they're not fitting, and they become what we call acultural. So aping, imitating is very appropriate, as the proverb that you're saying. It's that now, do you cut the ears only, or is it going deeper than that?
Why?
You've done an excellent job of actually giving serious meaning to the proverb. Thank you.
Yes. So, Siti, what would your interpretation have been like?
You see, it's like there are many cultures that have similar sayings, all right? And the saying is simply this. There are things that you can do because you've done them. And as the good doctor has mentioned, they are part of your culture, so you understand them. But then you decide, let me imitate someone else. Let me do what somebody else is doing. Let me wear clothes that other people are wearing. Let me have a bone passing through my nose as opposed to my ear. Okay?
And it looks good.
Yes. And so you think you fit in. And then, as the good doctor again said, now reversing that whole process, you suddenly realize that now what you're dealing with is regret. Why did I do this?
Yes, you cannot.
Yes. No.
You can't reattach the ears.
No.
They're gone.
No, they're completely gone. That's it. And they're not going to grow.
Wow.
It's not like a lizard's tail. This one, once you cut it, it's gone. Yes.
So, Dr. Ari, why are you worried?
When I started counseling almost 30 years ago, mental health was just the tip of the issue in terms of presentations. And then as time went on, we saw it progressing and said, hey, we need to go back to school to learn what is this thing about mental health that is becoming so strong. Today, that's all we are seeing. Mental health, whether it's across the age group. Unfortunately, the age group is dropping in that we are seeing younger and younger. Initially, it was very rare to see a primary school student. Today, you see primary, and now you see nursery.
What?
And 4-year-olds coming in and talking of suicide even.
At 4?
At 4. And we've got 6-year-olds who try to commit suicide. So the you can see the progression. And it's almost like you don't know what to do. We know there's a problem. There's plenty of studies out there to show what contributes. Substance use is just one of them. It starts early. It's starting earlier and earlier. And of course the effects are there, especially during the developmental stages, how it affects the brain development. Adolescents, we know, are going through a spurt of growth in so many different ways. Their brain is developing at phenomenal speed. And then you introduce a substance that's going to affect how that works and how that gets developed. So before you know it, we have a problem. Not many people admit to addiction or dependency.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, no, we are in control. We know how to use it. We can manage it. I mean, everybody's using it, that kind of thing. But that as time has gone, not only have we developed in terms of our use, we've developed also in terms of where that use is coming from, where that substance is coming from, how that is being developed. When we talk about weed, sounds so simple. There are 2,000 to 3,000 different types of weed out there. And when you start mixing, you're going to have something popping out of that. The days are gone when weed was just seeds thrown and it grew and you took the leaves and it seemed harmless enough. And it was harmless to some extent because you could take it and then go off it. I mean, a lot of kids tried it in school, and then just went on with life.
Yeah.
Didn't get hooked on it. Today, if you take weed, you are not really getting organic weed. You're just the leaf is a conduit for a chemical. And so what you're getting is very, very different. It's a totally different ball game. And so when we are talking of addiction, we're talking about mental health issues, we can see where it's coming from.
Dr. Are you saying that our young children are getting into mental health issues mainly because of substance abuse?
Not mainly.
Okay.
Substance abuse is one of the reasons that they are getting into mental health. It's one of the contributing factors.
What are the others?
The others are environment. The others are stresses of life. There's a lot of focus on meritocracy in schools. Come up with your 100% in everything. And it's very common. I sit with parents all the time. And you'll find them, you'll say, the kid will say that, when I come with 98%, they ask, where did you go wrong? And
what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? I mean, and how could you make that mistake?
Yeah.
That stupid mistake. They're not looking whether you get an A+ from 90 or you get an A+ from 99, it's still an A+.
Yeah.
And it's still damn good. Unfortunately, the focus is on the black dot on the white paper rather than on the whole white paper, kind of situation. So it's quite sad that way. That's one contributor, parents. Don't forget, a lot of substance use doesn't necessarily mean it is starting with peers. It's also starting at home. There's influencing factors at home, there's environmental factors, there's social factors, there's environment and in the house that is also contributing. Parental disputes, marital discord, breakups in family, substance in the home, availability of it, social settings that people want to live with. And so if the child is seeing their parents drinking, what stops them from even trying? And the parents will say, don't drink, and then the parent is talking and saying, I started when I was 15. Why shouldn't this teen start when he's 14 then?
So we are seeing this, Dr. Terry, that is getting younger and younger. So that just from what we've been able to see before, there's interest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've seen somebody, so you want to say, okay, this thing that's making them do this, can I have a feel of it? Can I have a taste of it? There are other factors. There's depression.
There's depression.
Mental health issues
Right.
make somebody go towards substance
Absolutely.
abuse. So beyond curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
peer pressure,
Yes.
what are some of the reasons, other things that you're seeing that is
Yes,
making them go?
There are so many. Remember that there is peer pressure, yes. There is also social influences. Our billboards and that may be contributing. The nice pictures that you see, I just saw the one for Martel outside. But if you look at the picture of Martel, it doesn't have kids on it.
Yeah, no, it
It's got
doesn't.
mature guys on it. So that's a plus. If you see the Johnny Walker's the sign, it's got a really old-looking guy in a black tuxedo. You know, so it's not necessarily that the billboards and that are contributing. They may have a factor. I mean, it's one factor, and maybe a very small percentage. But when you look at the youth today, there is pressure on them to fit in, and there is also pressure that is put by not only environment but familial factors. And what happens is this affects their concept of the self. Your concept of yourself is what makes you who you are. Your self-confidence, your self-esteem, the picture that you would like people to see you as, and looking cool, things like that. But these were always there. It's just that it's much more prominent now. And the moment you see that getting affected, that teenager is going to look for a way to either cope with it or improve that self-concept. And before you know it, I mean, substance is the way to go. Use weed, it'll make you feel cool, make you calm, relax.
You're with the cool guys.
Yeah, exactly. You're fitting in. And it's very important for teens to fit in. We understand that. And therefore, if they do not have a strong backbone at home that gives them principles, values, positive ways of using up their energy, there's two ways energy will go. An adolescent has got immense amount of energy. Either they'll use it negatively or positively. Positively generally comes from home. The family pushing to go for sports rather than a disco. Or going to a disco once in a while, complementing it with other positive things. We're not saying disco is not positive, but then it can have a negative connotation to it. It can have an implication. And if they're playing sports, then what happens is they come home tired, and then they become aware that they don't need the substance because they want to be fit for that sports. But the moment they don't have any of those, and parents are busy today. Wives are not at home, mothers are working as well, they're multitasking. I always say a mother has got so many different, she's a wife, she's a mother, she's an employee, she's an administrator, things like that. The father is a father. and the mother has to be both mother and father. And so with today's lifestyle, they are leaving the children more with gadgets.
But what
Contributory factor, there you are.
But Doc, what worries you is not that these young people are tasting. That's not what worries you, from what I understand. What is worrying for you is the extent to which this consumption is happening.
That's right.
And then the dependence upon this. How bad is that?
So when it comes to dependence, a lot of factors make one dependent. And yes, repeated substance use drives you into that direction. But there's also genetic factors, there's environmental factors, there's home issues. If you have an alcoholic within the family, there's a pretty good chance that you have a predisposition to it. And very often I compare a very simple example, and I say if you have diabetes or high blood pressure in the house, in terms of family, uncles, aunts, parents, etc., and then you have a lifestyle that is going to push you in that direction, at some point it can tip you over. It might not, but there's a good chance it will. If you have a lot of stress, you are obese, you don't have a healthy lifestyle, etc., there's a good chance you'll get either high blood pressure or diabetes or so. Substance use is very similar. If there is a mental health issue at home, there is a genetic predisposition already. So if we are going to tip that child with stress, with substance use, with environmental factors, with social factors, etc., at some point it's going to tip. Chances are high.
Let me ask the question. The parents and the environment in which a child is brought up in is a contributor.
Correct.
Let's look at the parents. What are the stressors? What are the underlying issues that parents do to that contributes to either their negative mental health or the positive mental health? Because if you're talking about having children of 3 years of age and 6 years of age having problems, the likelihood is that those problems emanate from their homes. Yes.
Absolutely.
And so what is it that a working parent, an adult who has children, what are the things that you've come across that you could say generally this is what people tend to face? And that's what contributes to probably the other things that we see in the children and some of our younger citizens.
There's probably more than one. So the first one that comes to mind is they don't have time. Parents are busy, they leave in the morning, they come home tired. Some are multitasking, so they'll be working a little later. Things like they come home, the kids have done their own thing. That's one. But don't forget that when parents are overly busy, what is happening to the family unit? What is happening to that marriage? There is the marriage just becomes almost administrative. You know, where is that family togetherness of going for a picnic on a Sunday, going to Karura together, going for an outing, going for a movie, having popcorn night on Saturday? It's almost disappeared. When I talk to a lot of couples, a lot of parents, they find it very odd that my wife and I watch the same show, whether it's a series, and we'll watch it together, and we won't jump, one won't have their own and the other has their own. We have one TV at home. I talk to parents and they say every room has a TV. Okay. So what happens to everyone? Everybody's going to their own show. So when are they sitting together, laughing, chatting, talking about traditions, experiences, about grandpa used to do this, dad used to do this? It's disappeared. And it's replaced by the new lifestyle that has come in. Call it a modern lifestyle if you want.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. So when that kid comes home and goes into his room, they'll close the door. That was unheard of before. And then houses are bigger, people are becoming a little more affluent, every kid has its own room, so the two siblings are not sitting together. Mother is in another room, father is in another room. It's contributing, no doubt.
Boy, it's a big one. A very worried Dr. Mohamoud Merali is our guest. He's a consultant medical psychologist. Why is he worried? He's worried because of what he's seeing, especially with the mental health of our young people. Substance use in teenagers, and what are the contributing factors that lead to this, but also beyond just substance abuse, what is it that is affecting our young men and women? Dr. Mohamoud Merali, consultant medical psychologist at the Aga Khan University Hospital. We are talking about substance use in teenagers. These are some of the things that you have observed from the clients that come to you, from the conversations that you have with your clients, and what you're able to then to pick out is there's an issue. And that's why you started by saying, I'm worried. I'm worried that there's an issue. Is there anybody else who is worried?
I think parents are worried. It's not that they're not. And I think most medical institutions today are worried because they're probably all seeing the trends that we are seeing. So it's not that it's not concerning. It's probably also a worry for the upper adolescent age, 25 onwards, because they can probably see dependencies creeping in, mental health issues creeping in. So it's not that they are not worried. It's how we are all dealing with it that seems to be at variance, maybe. That we can acknowledge there's a problem. We can sense it. We know the causes. We know the effects. We don't seem to get it right as to what to do.
Siti.
You know, the what Dr. Mahmoud is talking about is what you call food for thought. Why I asked the question about the adults is this. Every day when we read the papers, the things that keep shocking us and depressing us, the atrocities we see being committed by grown-ups. Some of these things are directed at children. Some of these things is adults against adults.
Right.
And it's not as though it's decreasing. They are getting more and more bizarre. You hear of decapitations. You hear of body parts. The other day we heard of somebody, there were some boiled bones next to the Nairobi National Park. And we were thinking, what on earth is happening here? It's out of an A-listed horror movie. I mean, where every second you're supposed to be shocked and horrified. What exactly is happening?
I think because mental health is becoming big, it's becoming much more, we are becoming more aware of it. That's one. And what is then happening is we are focusing now a lot more on it than probably was there. It's not that these atrocities were probably not there in the past. They probably were. And I hope what you're drinking is coffee.
Water.
We all hope.
We can all hope. Or should I say, we can all live with hope.
I've heard that long enough. Oh, that was a light note.
Yes.
But, and it's not that these atrocities didn't exist, they did. And that now that we are focusing a lot more on it, so there's a lot more unearthing of it. There's a lot more media attention to it, that kind of thing. And so what is happening is we are seeing a lot more of it, as opposed to probably what other news we used to get in terms of whether it was sporting activities, whether it was roads, floods, things like that. But having said that, yes, it is definitely much more bizarre. It's much more at a different level that we are seeing, which probably wasn't there before. And it seems almost like it's progressed. And that then brings the question that is mental health deterioration that probably was there, is that progressing as well? Is that getting worse? Are we ending up with a different types of now mental health issues that we probably didn't have to think about before?
You see, when one thinks of mental health, one probably thinks of things that bring about death. But you see, what we discuss here sometimes has to do with the decision making of people who are in authority. The gentleman who was here just before, we were discussing the school feeding program, and we were looking at the gaps in it. And it led to a larger discussion of how is it that people who are tasked with managing the country, who are tasked with making laws and making decisions for the rest of the country, why do they appear to be so deaf and blind when it comes to making decisions or implementing things that would actually help people, despite the fact that all of them have constituents who need the very things that we're talking about? And the manner in which they exercise the impunity seems to be getting more and more brazen. It is no longer an issue of somebody does something that is untoward and is hiding. There is no hiding. It is out in the open and it is in your face. Would you say that this constitutes a form of mental health deterioration?
It definitely has an effect in terms of the prevention programs, in terms of awareness programs, in terms of highlighting the issue so that strategies can be put in place. And my view is that it's probably because there's so much firefighting going on politically as well, that they're so busy day to day working on things that the real problems, it's not that they're not aware and it's not that things are not happening. That's not in the forefront. What is in the forefront is the firefighting, the day-to-day politics, if you want to call it. And it doesn't mean that things are not happening. I mean, if you look at the great work that NACADA is doing, they have got studies, they have got programs in place, structures in place. But because the forefront is everything else, what they are doing is not coming up to the front to say, hey, there's a program going on here. Let's highlight it more so that people are more aware that there is help available. And so we tend to then not look at it that we almost think it's ignored. It's not necessarily ignored. It's probably happening, but more in the background rather than the foreground.
Let me give you an example of what I mean. When you were growing up and you went to a public hospital, you would find medicine. when you went to school, if it was a primary school, most schools that people went to were public schools.
Yes, including me.
Yes, there are schools of choice. In fact,
Yes.
people went to schools, public schools, as schools of choice.
Absolutely.
All right? The opposite is true now, with the exception of probably the so-called national schools or some county schools which are of repute. Most public schools which are day schools are not in a good state because they are overcrowded. Everything about it is not what it was.
All right.
So I could say one would have hoped that from where some of us started off, things would be infinitely better now.
All right.
Because we know more, we have more money, but that isn't the case. Now, if you have pressure or you have the optics of something which is going wrong at a level where decisions are supposed to be made, I am arguing that it has an effect on the people who consume whatever this narrative, people who have to relate to this narrative, because it impacts their lives directly.
Right.
If they have children, it impacts on the children, because we're talking about children and the abuse of substances. Adults also abuse substances, and probably even more than children, because one,
Absolutely.
they have the means to abuse it.
Yes, yes.
Now, would you say that substance abuse, in the broadest way possible, is on an increase in this country?
I don't think there's any doubt to that. I don't think there's any doubt that it's in an increase. The difference being, it's not in an increase in one direction. It's in an increase in different directions. There are different dimensions to drug use. So if we go back 30, 40 years when we were in school, what was the drug of use? It was weed.
Yes.
Mira existed.
Yes.
Cut. That was about it.
True.
Yeah. We may have heard about heroin and cocaine, but we never even thought we'd ever even see it. Yeah. What do we have today on the market? We are as good as the West. And its affluence has come in, and that's parental affluence. It's not children's affluence. They are not the rich ones. Parents are rich, probably giving the kids a little more pocket money. And the kids are exposed to all of these things. And then because of the influencing factors that we talk about, family, environment, pressures of life, self-esteem, blah, 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 peer influence, social cultures, etc., what has happened is they have that availability. And so why not give it? Teenagers will experiment. Today they are able to experiment with a lot more. They have a variety of experimentations that they can do. And there are new ones coming all the time. I mean, we are not talking about crack and cocaine and pills and that. We are talking about, you've heard of Jambu juice, the new one on the market.
What on earth is Jambu juice?
Welcome to the real world. Mira. There's a juice taken out called Jambu juice. And that's the new one on the market. And there are people looking at how they can bottle it and market it. And so we've got a new one. It's going to be tried, because when it's there, that kid is going to say, have you tried it? You don't want to say no. You want to fit in. So you'll give it a try.
And it's just juice.
It's just juice, technically.
Right.
And so eventually what will happen when I would try weed, and then tomorrow I try cut, and then I try a pill, and then I try jam. Before you know it, I've got a problem coming in. It's tripped something in my head. I've got a mental issue coming in. Known to contribute. Because why? I didn't stick to one. And if I stick to one, I'm sticking to different dimensions of one.
Yeah.
Before you know it, like I said, there's 2,000 types of weed. You can imagine mixing 10 types in a span. What's going to happen? Something is going to trip.
Something
is going to go wrong.
Yeah. So, if we know that there is, we can see that there's a burden of dependence,
Right.
abuse,
Right.
of drugs, right? I still don't understand why we separate, drugs and alcohol, but okay. We know that there's an overdependence. We know that there are quite a lot of young people also in treatment, in
Correct.
rehab and things like that. We also know that the nation has declared mental health, which we know sometimes is coupled with this abuse, a disaster, an emergency. What are we seeing that is, or can be done to reduce the numbers that we are seeing and also to reduce the potency of these addictions?
So I think there's quite a few things that can be done. And yes, from the government point of view, we say they're doing what they can. But remember, drug and substance abuse didn't start at government level. It started at home level. It started with a teenager who's living at home or in a boarding school with one or two parents or guardians and peers and the influences from home and the influences in school. And when you start compounding those influences, you have a trigger. So I think parents have got a lot more responsibility than they think they do. The concept of putting a child in a boarding school and saying the school will groom them, that's just washing your hands. You put your kid in a boarding school and say that school has good values, it's a religious school, etc., etc. It's a school nonetheless. It has peer influence nonetheless. It has social, cultural, environmental influences. But you've just taken away the home influence, the values, the principles, the talks, etc. And you've given them to somebody else and say, please bring up my child and give him back to me good. That's not going to happen. You're just taking away your own responsibility and saying that school should have done A, B, C, D. My kids started weed in school. Where were you? That's not the school's child, it's your child.
I was paying school fee. I was looking for the
There
money.
you are, there you are.
There's somebody who just sent me a message saying that it's not just Mira, even Bangi has juice.
Sorry?
Okay.
Oh, you can make juice?
I've just been informed.
I've just been enlightened.
Yes.
Don't see anymore.
And then don't forget, I mean, weed has progressed. It used to be just weed that was put in a newspaper and smoked.
Yeah.
Or the cigarette roll papers and smoked.
It was called Rizla.
Okay. You're from that generation.
I'm from that generation, yes.
Yes. Those nice small packets with the
yes,
you could
exactly.
lick it and stick it.
Yes.
What has happened is you get weed in cookies, you get weed in cake, you get weed in juice, you get it in sodas, etc. And then the youngsters are very, very tech savvy. So today, if you start Googling and saying, where can I get hemp juice? Also, you'll find somebody who's selling hemp as if it's a hair product or something, and probably pretty available online.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get, very easy to order, very cheap. I mean, how much is a roll of weed? 100 bob?
I don't know.
Yes, it's about 100 bob.
Yes.
My time was 10 bob.
And the 10 bob was a great deal in my time.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, it was a lot.
But you see, that means it's affordable.
Yeah, it was extremely affordable
Even then.
Yes.
We didn't easily go into it.
Yes.
Or whoever experimented with it was the one where 10 people are sitting and they're sharing one joint. Today everybody has their own joint and their own type.
Actually, it was rarely smoked alone. No,
Yes,
you
behind the labs.
You smoked with your friends.
Yes. And so one joint went a long way. Today, you will not share the joint easily because you have your preference of type.
Oh dear.
And so what happens is you have your own stash, which is enough to last you a week. You're not going to share it. So what happens is you have a lot more availability than before.
What I'm hearing you, Doc, saying is that the adults have a responsibility and they seem to be shirking that responsibility, right?
Yes.
And there are very many factors that are contributing to this. I mean, you're just feeling there's the life pressure,
Right.
that you have all these things to do,
Right.
and you've got the needs to meet, and so you focus on that, and then just hope that just have all these balls in the air, catch the red ones,
Right.
The black ones, if they come on this route and there's no red one on the way, you'll catch it.
Yeah.
If the black one just falls, you have a basket down there that you're hoping it'll get into the basket. It's pressure.
It's pressure.
How can we do this? You want us to reduce the balls,
True.
increase the hands? How do we deal with this?
And it's not saying that the parents don't recognize the challenges they are having. Life has become a lot more pressured. There is a lot more need and emphasis on finance driven lifestyle, as opposed to what we had traditional or value driven lifestyle.
Yes.
And so what is happening is, as parents are trying harder and harder to give their children what they call a good life, because they had a tough life, they don't want their children to go through the same thing, and so they're giving in more and more to the children. A parent will do without in order to make sure their child has got a good pair of shoes, and they won't make do with just one pair.
Yeah.
They'll do with a brand. And the parent will probably taking a matatu and leaving the car in order to feed that. So parents are trying to fit in with society as well, you know, and that's putting pressure on them, giving them holidays, etc. Schools, private schools are not absolved completely. I mean, look at the education whereby every term there or every year they have a trip, and now it's not a trip to Karura Forest.
No.
Or so it's an abroad trip, and the parents are trying to fit in and saying, "Oh my God, you know, I need." Yes. And so, and then if they don't, there's an effect on that child.
So there are very many programs, like, boot camp programs, holiday programs for the youth, for the teenagers to attend, so that they can be, be given, they can be nurtured, they can be taken through. What I'm hearing you saying is that we actually need boot camp programs for adults, for parents.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're not getting that.
And not only for adults, for families.
For families together.
So that they can have that sharing, they can have that time which they are not getting Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday. And then Sunday, everybody's just too tired, they're waking up midday. I mean, the day's gone.
City, that's an idea.
It's a very good idea.
Boot camps for families.
Yes.
Well, it is a very, very good idea.
And in that, then you incorporate programs. And this is where the well-wishers and the goodwill comes in. That let's have programs in that will have joint family activities, maybe a chat or two, maybe a fireside chat for the kids, for the teens. And there are some religious organizations or some paths that are being followed in that. It's not that it's not there. But it's not a norm.
It's not as widespread.
You hardly hear of it. You know?
You'll hear about it during certain events, maybe circumcision. So
they
will come together as parents because their boys are going through this, so they'll have some session. But just a short session.
Yeah.
And now you need it to be something that's more inculcated.
But what you see is some churches specifically have it for couples.
Yes. Only the couples.
It's only couples for a retreat, things like that. But the concept that you've mentioned is an excellent one.
Where's the family in it?
The entire family.
Yes. And you'll have church activities doing it for couples and then having it for the youth.
Yes.
Separately.
Where's the joint one?
But it just sounds like all of it needs to be deliberate. That you need to make a conscious, deliberate effort to do something about it. Because if you just assume that somebody's going to take it up,
Yes.
It won't happen.
It won't happen. You know, and yes, it needs to be deliberate to say these programs need to start coming in place. These programs need to be part of an ongoing program somewhere. Whether you are going to take it from churches and mosques and temples, or you're going to take it from school, or you're going to take it from companies and corporates, and say let's have family days. You know?
Neighborhoods, a block, just
That's
saying,
true. Christmas party should not be just the office. Make it a family Christmas party. Khan University does that.
Okay.
They have family day. They just did one the other day. And it was sporting activities, children, and it was family.
Beautiful.
That's what we need more of as an ongoing, continuous, very, very specific, driven thing.
Very deliberate.
Very deliberate, as you're saying, yes.
Dr. Mohamoud Merali, consultant medical psychologist at the Aga Khan University Hospital in Nairobi, has been our guest. Just taking us through this, it's not just about teenagers anymore, it's about families. And thank you very much, Doc, for joining us.
Thank you. I am humbled. I appreciate the opportunity. And let's hope there is some word going out there that says, let's take one step. It starts with one step. Starts with one person doing it.
Yep.
Indeed.
Indeed.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your